Hi, this is Joy from stopfeelingstressedout.com. And today I've got two special guests, not just one, I've got two for the price of one today. I've got Shig and Paul from SP Bespoke on the line. And today is a little bit different in that we're going to look at one of the causes, we're going to look at one of the solutions that people turn to when they're stressed. And in this particular instance, it's going to be alcohol. So, I enjoy a little tipple, other people do as well, but Paul and Shig have noticed that it can be a problem. It became a problem in their lives, and they're going to share a little bit more with me. So, hi, Paul. Hi, Shig.
Hi, Joy.
Hello, Joy.
Good to have you on the show. And I want to really dive quickly into, alcohol and stress, and possibly how that little lovely combination has played itself out in your life, Paul, or you, Shig. So whichever of you want to go first, how has that combination worked out for you?
Okay, this is Shig, and just to explain, myself to you and the stresses and why I turned to alcohol, it's one of them things that slowly but surely crept up on me. I became a businessman at a very young age, and the stresses were getting on top of me as I was running my businesses. And one of the reasons I think I turned to alcohol was because I was basically anything that's happening in my life, I was burying, concentrating on my business and working so hard that I didn't get a chance to basically look at what was going on behind me with my family and all the rest of the stuff that was going on. And then obviously as the businesses grow, the stress level gets higher because now you've got employees to look after and mouths to feed, shall we say. And the harder I was working, the more the stress level was getting to me. And the reason that I picked up a drink was because that seemed to calm me down and that seemed to take the stresses away.
Great. That is a perfect example of what happens to a lot of people in business, and also just the stress of running, having a project on that might be difficult. So everyone, I suppose, has been there, and I understand what you're saying there, Shig. For me, being a young business person, perhaps you have less skills, less coping skills, so alcohol might be something that you would turn to, but it could happen to anyone who's running a business. And the fact you then took on board people, employees, and you said more mouths to feed, you're responsible for the mouths that they have to feed. I can get why it becomes very, very stressful on you. And alcohol just felt like a solution because it calmed you down.
Yes,
That
definitely.
made a lot of sense. And Paul, can I bring you in and find out your story as well? So, stress happens. We all find solutions. As I said, this particular episode is about alcohol and the fact that we can fall back on that as a solution to the stress. So, Paul, what's your story?
Yes, of course, Joy. Well, I became a solicitor in 1990, and I had a 30-year legal career. In addition to which, I was also a mediator, and both of those roles involve dealing with real people in their real lives and their real problems. And it's a fairly technical role because there's lots of law, lots of regulations to learn. There's lots of communication, not only to the client who has the primary problem, but also communications with solicitors acting for their opponents, the judges of the court. And if the job wasn't done to a certain level, there would be consequences and adverse consequences, particularly in litigation. And so over the years, I found that I would adopt other people's problems and worry about them as if they were my problems. All I could ever do was my best with the skills and communication processes that we used. But after some years, it became quite overwhelming. The job became more difficult. And like most people, and I don't demonize anybody for this type of thing, they liked a couple of beers on a Friday night or a glass of wine with a nice meal or whatever. But when the the pressures, the strains, the worries, any adverse consequences, any walk of life, both personal and professional, come along, then my way some years ago was to actually consume more alcohol, because it would be the greater escape route, the more enduring escape route. But of course,
And it's
the
there,
difficulty.
and it's there, and it's acceptable in society. So I'm like you. When you said I don't demonize anyone for drinking, you know, you choose your weapons accordingly, I think, when it comes to stress. But I think when it
Yes, yes.
impacts your work and your family and other areas of your life, then anything that you turn to as a solution can become a problem. So, you know, going back to drinking, guys, you know, I'm a female. Okay, and I think the rate of, let's say, alcohol dependency, male to female, is it that men are twice as more likely to fall into that kind of solution than women?
I think not. Alcohol, or the effects of alcohol, do not discriminate against anybody in respect of their gender, their social background, their age. There is a biological difference with people who are slightly older, because they can't get over the effects quite as readily. I think the real point is, after a point, alcohol stops working. The reason for taking it in the first place stops working, and the person will need more and more and more of the socially acceptable, cleverly brandished poison that they consume to make them feel better, except it makes them feel ill. And when it starts to make them feel ill, their families worry, they can't perform quite so well at work. And indeed, that's the start of a descent, a downward spiral.
You've described that beautifully, Paul. But I was looking at some stats, so perhaps I'll go back and double check my figures. But you know, some problems that happen in this world. There's this female male divide between men perhaps suffering more than women, or women suffering more than men. So perhaps I might have got it wrong, but I'll double check. You know, I had a figure that, you know, men were affected twice as much as women, but there'll be listeners out there screaming, Joy, you're wrong, Joy, you're right. I don't mind. For
Well,
me, it doesn't discriminate against who it affects. I hear what you're saying, but a bit like if we switch to something a little bit more serious, like the suicide rate, we know that men are, I think it's like 3/4. Perhaps I've
yeah.
got my figures wrong there. So,
Well,
there's some kind of stats around it as well, but you
yeah.
know, it is what
Joy,
it is.
well, this is Shig, and if I can tell you about the stats, obviously the suicide rates, the stats are there because you can actually see them for real. The problem with alcohol consumption, whether it be male or female, you actually can't see them. And I believe people make that up as they go along for the simple reason that there are so many people drinking alcohol, especially females, that nobody knows about. It's not put out there anyway.
So
So
there aren't any. There's no definitive stats as such, because there's a hidden figure.
It's a hidden figure because most people are in denial. Most people don't admit that they have a problem in the first place, and there are a lot more of them than there are the ones that have actually put their hands up like ourselves to say I have a problem.
Right. Okay.
I think them figures, you know, it's very difficult to put a figure on something that nobody really knows.
I think it's important to say that statistics are important as a way of measurement to gauge the socio-economic and pastimes of the vast members of society. And it's often occurred to me that for those whose drinking leads to serious life problems, they will become a statistic. They will become a statistic either in the divorce court, the bankruptcy court, the DWP, the DVLA, the NHS, and many other large organisations like that. And I think it is important that these problems are measured in some way, so education can be conveyed to people who are otherwise unaware. But I think the point which Shig makes, which I wholly agree with, is that for the most part, people will drink behind closed doors with their curtains closed so that nobody else will know. Problem drinkers, in my experience, certainly do that. A couple of pints or a glass of wine at the pub on a Friday night. no problem, not particularly harmful. But if the dependence becomes more regular and regular, it is all consuming in an individual's life. And we at SB Bespoke treat all individuals as just that, individuals.
Absolutely. And I've got no problem with the response from people that are helping anyone with any kind of problem. I mean, that's it. You just respond. So you guys have this experience behind you, which I think no one can argue with, because experience to me comes out on top of any kind of reading or research. It's, have you been there? Have you
Yes.
seen it? Have you done it? I mean, I know that there's a big difference between reading things and me learning things and me experiencing things. They're
Yes.
two different sides of the coin. So I wasn't pulling in the stats for any other reason than it's to give the listeners a sense of, I'm a woman, perhaps women are less likely to do that than men, but it's affecting people. And I love what you said, in fact, Paul, about, okay, in the absence of, like, let's say, proper stats, the fallout can be seen if we were measuring it to who ends up going to the NHS for treatment, how many marriages fail, how many businesses fail. If we were looking at those stats and were able to perhaps make that link back to alcohol, perhaps the numbers would be a lot higher. So I'm with
Yes.
you on that.
Yes,
Brilliant.
definitely. And,
Lovely.
and the reason the male suicide rate is a lot higher than the female suicide rate, Joy, is because males are the people that don't talk about our feelings. We don't discuss our feelings, and we've always been told to man up, if you like, and where females do tend to talk a little bit more openly about how they feel.
Hmm.
And
And
that,
that is being put forward as a reason why perhaps specialist services, even the things that I do, the kind of the counselling, the therapy stuff, there's a way forward for addressing the issue in a slightly different way for men than we do for women. So yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But Shig, that's a brilliant point. I'm going to bring you back to your company now as well. So SP Bespoke. So it doesn't say what it does on the tin for me. What does it do? So you guys can perhaps tell me, perhaps why it was called that, and then how it actually operates, how you function. Because
Yes.
your lovely tagline, which I do really love, is seeing you get well and stay well. Now, I wish I thought of that, but you've got it now, so I can't nick it. There you go.
okay,
So guys, tell me some more about that.
well, it's Shig, and the reason SP Bespoke was it's quite simple, really. Shig and Paul, and then the bespoke side of it is because we wanted to tailor it to individuals, and the word bespoke is something which is tailored for somebody in particular, for their own way. And get well and stay well was because we are fed up of organisations and people putting plasters on people and then sending them back out there packing again to get on with their lives. So we needed to be different. We wanted to do something totally different. And our way of looking at this is a wraparound service where we not just look after the person who's suffering, but the families as well. And Paul will speak about the legal side of SP Bespoke, which makes it stand out from a lot of other companies in a sense that we look after the legal issues as well as the problems, what they have with their addictions.
That all sounds brilliant. Perhaps when Paul comes in, I'm just curious about how you two actually met and came together as a team. It suddenly occurred to me that, isn't it very interesting that you've got similar backgrounds, sort of.
You over to Paul on that one.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course, Shig. That's fine. Sorry to talk over you. That doesn't work on radio when we talk over each other. Sorry about that. So, yeah, that's brilliant. And perhaps, Paul, you can tell us some more about how you two came together as the dynamic duo, and really, the roles. I heard a little bit about the different roles that you two play, within your company. But yes, I'm just curious about how you two met.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joy. Shig and I have been very, very good friends for about 10 years, long time now. We met as a consequence of an introduction by a good friend of mine, 18 years in sobriety. I've known him since I was 15. I'm 58, she was 60. And we met because about 12 years ago, Shig had the fortitude and the passion to set up a particular meeting, which runs to this very day. And I attended that meeting, and we got along really, really well. And we've spoken over the years, and we never disagree on anything because our values are exactly the same. And then a couple of 3 years ago, we were having a cup of coffee or a lunch or something of that nature. And I must have just given a throwaway comment. Well, you show me somebody with an alcohol problem that doesn't have a family problem or a work problem or both, that then doesn't transform into a legal problem. Now, lots of people find legal problems really quite worrying. They're usually uncertain, they're long in their duration, they're very costly, and they're very worrying, they're very stressful. And there's a bit of a phrase that we've heard so many times, well, if you had this going on in your life, you would drink as well. Well, to my thinking, whether or not you're going through divorce or a bankruptcy or just suing your neighbour over a boundary dispute or your employer in the employment tribunal, whatever it may be, all legal journeys are subject to a process, all of which have a natural shelf life. They have a natural end. But when the person is in the midst of it, and therefore he's drinking too much to escape from it, and therefore his thinking is distorted and he can't focus on what he should be doing to actually eradicate the core problem, which for the purpose of this conversation is a legal problem, then he will go to a lawyer. And the big benefit that I can give to people in that circumstance these days is to say, well, in some way, shape or form, I've been where you are. I've been the guy that drank too much. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help you. And if you feel you're facing an unassailable brick wall, let's take it down brick by brick. So if you actually remove the reasons for the drinking, then with Shig's passion, and he's helped many, many people who thought they were hopeless get well, between us, we can help that person to get rid of the baggage, to see an end to the very unpleasant journey, and to put them on a better platform to get well and lead a healthier, more fulfilling life.
That sounds fabulous, and I like that connection between, it could be a work problem. Well, let's say the descent from, let's say, possibly being a family problem to a work problem to a legal problem, and again that straight line, that straight to disaster, basically. But anyone who's got a problem, there is a tendency to bury your head in the sand. And
Yes.
I love the way you said that. I must admit, it's a phrase that I say to my partner a lot. You're enough. What you're doing there is enough to make me turn to drink. And so it's a phrase that we use.
Yeah, it is. And the thing, the special thing is that when me and Paul first met, and many years ago, obviously as friends, and then we set this business up a few years ago where we looked into. I mean, we have only been running since last year. November of 2018. And the reason being, we had to make sure that we did it right. We wanted to look at everything and the ethics of it, how we're going to run it, and what sort of service we're going to provide. Now, Paul mentioned it really, really well as to the legal aspects of it, because I had so much legal stuff going on when I was trying to stop drinking, that I wish I had had Paul there at the time to relieve me of that, and I think I would have got well a lot quicker.
Yes.
And then secondly, the bespoke side of the business is we wanted a one-stop shop, which means that, when we actually do home visits, that's our service. That's what differs from a lot of other services. We actually go to the client's homes, because that's where the problem is. That's where the problem lies. That's where the truth lies. And once we can get into the truth, and once we can help not just the client, but the family as well. They're not being taken out and put in a bubble somewhere. They're actually being taken care of at home
Right.
on a continuing basis. So it's not,
Yes.
we're not going to put a plaster on them and say goodbye. What we're going to
Okay, and what you're describing there is a private approach to this problem, because of course there's lots of, let's say, hospitals and doctors and other services. There are charities out there that are addressing, let's say, the alcohol dependency, and they work that in with addiction too. So the two kind of run parallel. And then you have your specialist organizations who you'll go off to a little kind of retreat, I suppose, and apparently get well and then get dropped back into society. So what you're saying is that you're not, this sticking plaster that I think we spoke about a while ago, Shig, because I have had a little conversation with you.
Yes, yes.
You just don't, you know that a sticking plaster, which is, it appears to be working in this moment, but it's not necessarily testing you properly back out in real life. It's like me having my sugar addiction, you know, it's okay locking me away for sugar for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but guess what? When you put me back out in the real world, the sugar is going to be around me everywhere.
Exactly.
Now that's the real test.
And the real test also is you've got to remember the family, because, you know, people are quite, everyday people will look at other people and think of that poor person drinking too much or they need help. No one's looking at the family. The family themselves have got codependency issues. They've been emotionally blackmailed and lied to for so long, and they don't know how to cope, and they need help as well. So when you take somebody out of a bubble and fix that one person, they come back in and it's still a sick household there. And secondly, the stigma attached to this. You know, my ex-wife, her family didn't even know about my drinking problem because she didn't want that stigma attached. So we're very good at keeping secrets within the family. And the wonderful thing about SP Bespoke is that, you know, we have all our templates to say that we're completely private and confidential in what we do. We go into the homes with no badges on and no, you know, nobody knows that we're going into people's homes. So
the neighbours won't know.
We get in touch with the whole family so we can work with the whole family and see what's going on there and teach them how to live sober on a day-to-day basis. And Paul's being a mediator, which is a massive thing for us because we keep families together, not break them apart.
Well, I think that whole combination, Shig and Paul, that really sounds like a good approach for me for helping people, because I'm really anti, you know, helping people in a tiny way, but not 100%, because then the problem will come back. And I think that's not fair on that person's life, because we whatever we do in life, we try and provide some kind of hope and finality to a problem. So it's important for someone who's paying their money, because obviously it costs as a service, as a private company, it's going to cost someone. But you're also saying that as two people who've been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt, written the book, you know, you kind of know why it needs to be that way.
Yes, and we also have our team members who have been through their own issues in so many different ways, shapes and forms. We normally find that alcohol there's an underlying problem there with traumas in the past. So our team members have been through various different issues in their lives and come through the other end themselves. And they're there as well if we need them to step in and help us.
And all of whom are very, very well qualified and experienced. We're very selective about our team members. We've met them all, we like them all, we trust them all, and vice versa. And we're very happy to say that we can offer a fairly holistic, all-round service. And ultimately, for those people who are starting on the slippery slope, our prediction is, and evidence has shown, that it only goes one way. It's a really good idea for somebody to, or their husband or their wife, to pick up the phone and say, do you think it's going to be as bad as some of our predictions on our legal analysis tab on our website predict? And the answer is, I'm ever so sorry, it could go that far unless you take action now. And what we do is, and we call ourselves bespoke, is because all people are individuals. We operate with transparency. Anything that we say to anybody, we're happy to put in writing. Our prices, once quoted, never increase. We want people to trust us because we want to give to them what they deserve so they can come out the other end more quickly than, say, for example, my friend and business partner, Shig did all those years ago.
Yes. And if I asked you to because we within business and within the world, we go on about finding our life's purpose and, you know, finding the reason for us being here. You two have, you know, so wend your way down the pathway, different aspects of your, you know, early years, you were doing XYZ, now you're doing this. How would you define what gives you a buzz really from doing what you do?
Well, that's a very easy answer.
Seeing people get
well.
We said that together.
We are so passionate about what we do. We have been to hundreds of funerals and watched families saying to each other, could we have done more? And I'm afraid the answer is always yes, they could have. If I had £1 for everybody who tells me they're not ready yet or their family member is not ready yet, I'd be a millionaire. And the fact is, we try and explain to people when they're ready, there'll be a consequence. And that consequence could be anything from drink driving to divorce to losing your job or just dying, which many people do, I'm afraid, choke on their own vomit or alcohol poisoning or, you know, walk across the road when they're drunk. People don't seem to associate with alcohol as a liver disease or cirrhosis of the liver and the horrible death. Yes, there are deaths like that. Most deaths for alcoholics is just falling down the stairs or walking across the road. And so we say you can get off that lift at any time you want. And we try to stress to family and loved ones, yes, get in there first, intervene. Don't give them a choice. Don't tell them you're not ready yet. Don't listen to them words. Get in there and do it now before it gets too bad.
Wow. And Shig, I'm still, you know, like 2 sentences back when you kind of described funerals. I don't know. I mean, I know there's the liver thing going on, but I don't really always think about someone dying. And I'm sure that anyone who's got a dependency on anything may not think about that being their end point. But of course, that's what it could be. And I like the fact you said it's not the obvious thing, Joy. It's not just, you know, you've done something to your liver, Joy, by drinking too much alcohol. It's Joy. You know, you tripped, top of the stairs, you fell down. Or you might have been in a state and you stepped out and you weren't looking, and guess what? You got hit by a car. Or God forbid, I was driving my own car and I wiped myself out and somebody else's life. So there's a lot. There's a lot going on here, guys. And you're saying tackle the problem sooner rather than later, because later just means everything. Yeah, prevention is better than cure, and it's the development. You might not be able to see the development of your own problem.
Oh, that's absolutely spot on, Joy. Be aware. Lots of people aren't aware until all the little innocuous problems have mounted up. And then all of a sudden, over a period of time, and alcohol is very patient, it might take weeks, months, years, decades, who knows, but be aware and change. And without change, you will have no chance if you go too far. Alcohol affects not just the liver. Alcohol, I'm reliably informed by people with medical qualifications, affects every part of the body, not the liver, not just the pancreas, eyes, diabetes, brain. My business partner, Shig, had a wet brain. It's got a long fancy name, Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. That was created by an extreme deficiency in vitamin B. Vitamin B dissolves in alcohol. If you drink it too much, your brain doesn't function. So how then are you going to perform well at work? How are you going to lavish the affection on your loved ones that they deserve? It is a downward spiral.
This is a huge topic, and I'm probably going to have to invite you both back and get into some more detail about alcohol. But we have to accept that it is the acceptable face of dealing with stress. You know, have a drink. We have to accept that that's the party line. You know, we do that. But is there? I mean, okay, people are not going to stop drinking alcohol anytime soon. So, do you think there's a way of drinking safely?
Yes.
I mean, okay, you guys have been down the road. We're going to say, don't drink, but yeah, people are going to drink.
No, what we don't do, Joy, as a business, we do not put badges on people. We do not label people, because it's wrong to label people. They are not all alcoholics. They're not all addicted. Some people have had a death in the family, or they've lost their job, or they've had a divorce and they've drank too much on that particular occasion. You know, there's so many different ways. And our job is to educate people as well. It's not just, sometimes we don't have to do a long-term stint on somebody. We can go in there and we can pick up what's going on, and we can basically write their life story for them and tell them, if they carry on this way, this is what will happen. There are a lot of people who have got an alcohol problem that once they're educated on their problem, they can drink safely.
Okay, so that's a really good ending, because I mean, drinking safely is probably what majority of the population could do or should do, and there are people obviously that have gone beyond that point. As you said, it's not my job or your job to dictate to people what they do with their lives. Okay, but my job is picking up the pieces sometimes from people experiencing stress, anxiety, depression, and yours is people who have turned down this route as a solution, using alcohol as a solution. Your reason for being, seeing people, get well and stay well if they've fallen on the wrong side of alcohol, should we say. So I'm going to wind things down, guys. So before we go, just want you to tell me how anyone that's listening can get hold of you, and I'll be putting stuff in show notes as well. But if you can just say, how can people get hold of you if they want more information?
That's very easy, very simple. We like to keep things simple. They look at www.spbespoke.com. We call it SP Bespoke Wellbeing Solutions, but SP Bespoke is all they need to remember. On the website, it's easy to navigate. There's Shig's phone number, there's my phone number, and they pick up the phone. Anybody is entitled, anybody is most welcome to give us 20 minutes so we can listen to them, get to know them a little bit, make them feel at ease. And if they like what we say and they think we can help them, and more often than not we can, then we make an appointment, we go to see them, we prepare our proper terms and conditions so they know they're dealing with a proper, responsible business who can help, who is passionate, because we've been where they are.
Perfect. You two are like consummate professionals. Yes, I'm going to have to get you back to talk about this topic, because it's bigger than anything that I understand about alcohol, and nothing like talking to somebody who knows. So guys, thank you so much. Shig, thank you so much for coming on. Paul, thank you for so much for coming on. That's SP Bespoke, SPBESPOKE.com.
That's
great. Okay, I'm going to invite you back at some point, seriously, but thank you so much for coming on today.
It will be a pleasure.
Really appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was Paul and Shig from SP Bespoke. And as you can hear, they're a specialist service that deals with anyone who has alcohol dependency. And I will put some information in the show notes. So thank you all for listening, and come back and listen to my next round of interviews. Who knows who I might choose, but as you do know, it's always going to be looking at stress and the effects that it has on human beings and the solutions that we find. So bye for now. This is Joy from stopfeelingstressedout.com.